Hello, in this presentation, we'd like to look at proposals for the accounting programs. The objectives: we will be able to define a recent change and opportunity that now allows us to improve the accounting program, explain why changes to the material covered would improve the accounting program, and list steps to make improvement happen. So here's what we currently have in our schedule. Just want to note what we have here. We're currently using this textbook. It's the McGraw-Hill textbook, and that's our major core textbook. It's very similar to the prior Cengage textbook that we had before. For managerial accounting, we're using this textbook, and these are the classes in order. Basically, we would take this class, then this class, then this class, then this class, if they were in order. They are not currently taught in that order all the time, but if they were taught in a linear fashion, that would how they would be. What we want to note is that the AC 1110, in terms of chapters, in terms of content being covered, has 10 chapters. The second one, 8. The next one's 6, and then we move to a different textbook, which has 12 chapters. Also want to note the colored areas, which indicate that there's some duplication in the material being covered. The proposal is to go from something like this to something more like this, where we have one textbook across the entire area, giving us conformity in that, and the number of chapters being covered would like to keep at 5 or 6, would like to knock AC 1110 down to 5 because it is the first chapter, and give some conformity in terms of what the text will look like, as well as what students can expect when they go from class to class. So why are we talking about that now and not in the past? Well, the recent change that has happened now is now that we have 2 prerequisites. So what that means is this used to be the only prerequisite that we had. So that means that students could have taken this and then jumped over to any other class in their second mod, depending on the wheel. Now we can cover the same amount of 10 chapters in order to fulfill the prereq requirement with 2 prerequisites, because now we have this class and then accounting students take this class. So we can fulfill the prereq requirement by covering that amount of material not in one class but in 2 classes. This is actually the format that we did have when we did have more than one prerequisite in the past in the same program. So when we moved to one prerequisite in the program, we moved the material up to 10 chapters. Now that we have added 2 prerequisites from 1, we can cover that same prereq requirement by teaching that information back down into the 2 chapters. So this gives us the opportunity to align our content for the 2 prerequisites and take it back down to something that is more manageable, more even, and more evenly distributed. So how could we do that? Well, step 1, we can remove the duplicated information from AC 1510, AC 1520. Notice we have some duplicated information. Most of this is managerial accounting type stuff. And the proposal would be then to move to this book, our main book, because it's our main textbook. It conforms with other chapters, and it's also a lot better with Connect. It uses Connect a lot better. It uses LearnSmart, whereas this book does not. So the idea being, since this is duplicated information, to remove this and to take that out, take most of this and move it into here. So it's not exactly like that, but what we did is, what I'm proposing is to include chapter 18, which isn't included here, and then 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, and keep in this area the job and the process costing. So those are the details, but in essence, that's what we're proposing. That would bring the course to 6 chapters here, which would be in conformity. And the first question is, can we do that? Can we go from this book, which has 12 chapters, down to 6 chapters, and still cover the same material that's on the syllabi? And the answer to that is yes. And the reason to that is because basically these chapters are a lot longer than the chapters covered in here. So if we were to match up the objectives in the syllabi, this would actually be the easiest change in terms of syllabi requirements in that area. If we just completely remove the textbook and include this textbook, the objectives line up very nicely, and we really don't have a problem in terms of changing the syllabi in that case. So it is doable in that sense in terms of the syllabi. We want to focus on the prior chapters, the financial statements, because most people that work in accounting, it's going to work in like the accounts receivable, the accounts payable department, and payroll. They're going to be entering data in order to create the financial statements. That's financial accounting, not really so much managerial accounting. So we really, if there's anything we don't really want to double up on in terms of a certificate program, it's really the managerial stuff, because most people that work in the accounting department are probably going to be working with entering data into the system. This will give students consistency, so our goal is to keep it a consistent amount of chapters being covered, as well as a consistent text. Prior textbook does not have LearnSmart. This will give consistency in the amount of material covered. So step 2, even out the remaining courses. So if we did that, in essence, we're taking this information and we're moving it in here into this class and removing this information. That means we're left with this lopsided distribution of chapters between these 3 courses. So now we've moved this out. We just basically need to then even out this information. Why can we do that? Because, and why haven't we done that in the past? Because now this 10 chapters prereq, we can now break out between AC 1110 and AC 1160 again. That's what the opportunity is to allow us to make this move. So debits and credits are very new. Most programs will cover, this stuff, basically the accounting cycle. And the one reason for that is debits and credits are going to be a new concept, meaning it's kind of like if you're learning to play chess and you're trying to figure out how to set the board up and how to move the pieces. Debits and credits are pieces that people don't know how to move yet, and we need to spend a lot of time just in terms of how do you set it up and how do you move it. Currently, we're really just going through this really quickly, so we're not spending enough time doing that, and then we're moving on to like playing the game while the pieces aren't set up on the board in any rational way. Also, they're going to be turning stuff in Excel or in a database program. Therefore, that really takes a lot more time than doing what they've done many times in the past, which is turning stuff in the form of a text document. So for that reason too, I think that it would be good to lessen the goal. If we do look at other classes and compared to other programs, I think that we will find that other programs do basically conform to the accounting cycle, which is chapters 1 through 4. And if we look at other courses with a similar textbook, I'm willing to bet that they're focusing on, more like 5 or 6 chapters rather than 10 chapters. Also, other students that are in the AA program or the bachelor's program that are non-accounting students, we'll have to take accounting 1110. So this could be a real stumbling block in terms of other students that aren't in accounting majors to take the 1110, which is really a pretty heavy class the way it's currently set up. Once we did that, then we can take a look at 1160. So once again, remember we moved this to here, and then we moved this down to 5 chapters, which means basically we're moving chapter 6 over to here, right? So now we've got, if we cut this down to 5 chapters, then we even out 1160 by moving this chapter. It's giving us an even 6 chapters. Again, why can we do that? Because now this is not the only prerequisite. We can cover that prerequisite within 2 chapters because these 2 are now taught in order. A few things to point out here that I did remove chapter 7 here, which deals with special journals, which I would rather spend personally more time on posting to the general ledger and doing debits and credits. So that's why I removed that, but we can discuss that. And then I also removed the payroll chapter, which also covers a little bit in terms of liability. And if we wanted to pick that up again, we could put in like half the chapter or the first third of the chapter here. So if we wanted to talk about that, we could talk about that if we wanted to move forward. Then 1510 then. So what we've done here, of course, we moved this to here. We've taken this out here. We've cut this down to 5 chapters. Then we moved these chapters over here to even it out. And then, of course, we would even it out by, we stopped at chapter 13, moving these and even them out, moving them over to here. Again, it's not perfect like that because I'm proposing 14, 15, 16, 17, and then keeping 19 and 20, and then moving chapter 18 over here. So there's a slight difference, but in essence, that's what we're doing. We're trying to basically just even out the distribution here. I moved 18 up here because it discusses just the basics of managerial accounting. The job order costing, the process costing was already in this class. It was in both classes before, but it was already in here, so I kept that in here to go with the cost accounting. So if we look at the objectives, then it would take some changes, of course, to the syllabi because we kept these 2 objectives, but then we moved basically this stuff to the managerial accounting class here, so it would take significant changes. Again, it wouldn't take a lot of changes to this class in terms of the syllabi, but for this class, the objectives, we have this objective still held, and then most of the rest of it we moved out. So that's how we could go from this to this.